It's me again, the beautiful classic chick in your area, your host in between I stand. Remember that I stand in between all my topics and I stand straight tall. It's gonna be a wonderful show today. What's going on around you? Are you keeping on? We're just gonna be talking about something really critical today. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube in between I stand, my Facebook in between I stand, and my Instagram page, one word in between I stand. So today I have a great man in the house. He's smart, intelligent, and very, very tolerant. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to discuss something really critical. He was born in Scotland in 1958, and he moved to Canada in 1967. He completed his medical school in 1986. So approximately 22 years experience, I think so. He went to the University of Zambia, very close to home, Africa, yeah. And he's fully practicing right now as a family physician. Join me as I welcome your guest, my guest, smart and intelligent doctor, Dr. Mitchell.
Hi.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Looks
And
like you got me a gift.
it's some beautiful flowers for a beautiful lady on an otherwise cloudy day.
Make yourself comfortable.
Thank
This
you.
is so beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
told you guys, smart and intelligent, and you can see him so good looking. Thank you so much for the beautiful flowers. You know what? I'm just gonna put it right here. Let's go back to business. We're gonna be talking about mental health issues today. You know, the problems and the little issues that people face in the outside world. A lot of people don't even know that they have this issue, right? So it's a very, very critical topic. A lot of people are so naive of all of those things. But before we go into that, I would love my guest to introduce himself to us.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation.
You're
It's
welcome.
a privilege. So happy to be here. Well, as you mentioned in your introduction, your viewers know a little bit about me. I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland in
That's
1958.
right. I know. I visited Scotland some years ago.
Yes, so you know what a beautiful city
Oh
it is.
yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love it.
And then we moved to Canada in 1967. My dad is a retired engineer, but back in the late 60s, Canada was very much the land of opportunity, and my dad decided to take a job with SAS Power, so we moved to Canada in '69, and that's where I completed most of my basic schooling and education and that, and I had the opportunity to go to Zambia back in 1980-81, spent 5 years there, got my basic medical degree.
Beautiful.
Yep, and then there was various steps in between, but ultimately I chose to become a family physician.
Okay.
So I did some family practice training from 1994 to 1996. That was in the States, actually. That was in Minnesota.
Beautiful.
And I stayed in Wisconsin, which is the neighboring state, for about 15 years.
Ooh.
And then it came time for various reasons to move back to Saskatchewan, and I'm happy to be back in Saskatoon.
We are happy to have you. You're doing an excellent job here.
Thank
we
you.
are happy to have you.
Thank you. So I've been back since 2010, and yes, one of the most better moves I've made. So
Beautiful,
here I am.
beautiful, beautiful. And you look good, by the way. You look good.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And I notice we're sort of complimenting each other today. Black and white.
That's right. So we're just going to talk about something really, really critical to me today. I would use that word. Mental health and religion.
Okay.
What is mental health?
Well, first of all, mental health is a very broad term. It's a very broad term because it affects so many lives in so many ways at different ages, in life. And I think up until probably about 20 or 30 years ago, there was still a bit of a stigma attached to it. I mean, for example, if somebody had said, well, I'm going to see a psychiatrist, the automatic assumption would be, oh, you're crazy.
That's right.
And I think that's a stigma that is slowly disappearing. Mental health affects all ages. There are unfortunately people that are come into this world with mental health challenges right from the beginning.
From the beginning.
And then during the course of adult years, the early adult years to middle age, there's the mental health issues that I'm probably more familiar with as a family physician, because that's something that's actually, as you said in your introduction, more common than we are led to believe. And then of course, as we get older, there's another set of health issues, mental health issues, and that usually revolves around dementia. So that too is a major health issue. And because the geriatric population is one of the largest growing populations in our society, the services that should be made available to elderly people suffering from dementia is lagging behind. So that's an important area of mental health to focus on as well.
What triggers mental health?
Well, that's a very good question. In fact, there are some people, as I mentioned, who are born with mental health challenges from the very beginning. So there's congenital mental health. There are some other mental health conditions. The most common one, and we'll probably talk more about this later, obviously, is depression. Depression has a strong family history, positive family history. So quite often, if a parent suffers from depression, there may be a child who, as they grow older and become their own adult, to develop depression. So, so not just chromosomal, but hereditary from your own ancestors can cause it. Sometimes, and for the most part, I think, what we see is a lot of what we call reactive depression. And that's depression basically related to circumstances in your own life, the type of upbringing you've had, the type of culture in which you've had that upbringing, the type of challenges that you've faced, usually academic, financial, relationships, all those things.
Marriage issues, and that's like...
Marriage issues, and that's one of the most important relationships, of course. Yes, absolutely. So, what triggers mental health in someone, say, who does not have it for a chromosomal reason or hereditary is usually circumstantial. But I should say there's another class of depression where you have it for no good reason. You can't explain it. You can't explain it based on your health in general. You can't explain it on hereditary factors. You can't explain it even on situational factors. You could have everything in the world going well for you and still suffer from depression, and it's often difficult to put a finger on, well, why am I feeling this way when everything is going well?
So, what are the things that, when we notice that in people, or when we notice that in ourselves, when we can still figure out one or two things about ourselves that will suggest that, you might need to see a doctor, you might need to see a psychiatrist, like, what are those little things?
Well, so there's two ways of answering that question. One is what do you notice in yourself, and then what do others notice that usually friends or acquaintances or family members. So and I think when it comes to identifying depression in another person, it's usually a little bit easier if it's coming from a close friend, a family member, because they know this person, they've grown up with this person, and they notice changes, subtle changes. And the thing is, a lot of people, unfortunately, are pretty good at covering up or hiding or compensating, and that really makes it hard to diagnose depression in those people. But I think in general, if you notice that someone is starting to behave not like you normally would expect them to behave, become more withdrawn, start losing interest in things that they were previously interested in. Start to withdraw socially. So for example, someone who used to like to go out a lot to visit with friends or go see a movie, get together for a meal, they start backing off on those sorts of things. Or if you notice, even during the course of a day-to-day interaction with them, they're not as positive as they used to be. Maybe their thinking becomes a little bit more negative. Their outlook on life becomes a little bit more negative, and they too, even say in the work situation, become withdrawn as well. Like it's like, gee, we don't see you much out in the hallway anymore, or you don't come out to the. Well, I'm using myself as an example because I work in a health clinic, but you know, we don't see you out in the front reception area much anymore. You seem to be in your office a lot, that sort of thing. I think that the objective then, because objective meaning not yourself, the objective factor is important. Yeah. I think the problem comes when you're trying to when you're trying to say, well, do I have depression? Because as humans, we all have tremendous defense mechanisms. And one of them is denial. And you know,
we're so good at that.
That's right. We're so good at that. I mean, we could be doing all these things that other friends would notice, and those friends might bring it to your attention, and we go, no, everything's fine. I mean, no, don't worry about me. I'll be fine. I'll be good. You know, but denial, I think, is a huge barrier to diagnosing depression in yourself. Okay. And I guess in a way I have a bit of an advantage being a physician. I'm aware of a little bit more about the causes of it, the presenting symptoms of it, how it manifests to others. But for your layperson, your non-medically trained person, it could be even more difficult because they don't have the medical background. And before you know it, they're isolated. They've cut themselves off from their friends, from everything. Maybe they don't go to church anymore. Maybe they don't show up for
walk in the mall,
family events, or they don't go for a walk in the mall like they used to do.
And the part of the world where I came from, Africa to be specific, a lot of people commit suicide. People die daily, and people around them are not even aware that they are going through this problem. They just see them one day, they are dead. See a lot of people jumping into water, killing themselves, doing terrible things. When does it get to that? That people will start thinking, no, it's time, like, I know they lose interest in things, but when they get to the situation where they say, you know what, I don't want to be in this world anymore, I just want to die. When does it get to that situation?
Well, I think it gets to that situation when you have to look at that person in terms of their cultural background. So, because it happens in this part of the world as well. I mean, I think just recently in the news, two fairly well-known people in the entertainment.
Did you hear about Kate Spade?
I did. And
yeah,
then,
and I love our birds. I don't know.
Well, and the other person, unfortunately, was Anthony Bourdain, the famous chef who used to. Well, he started off as a chef, did a lot of cooking shows, that sort of thing, but then towards the end, most of his shows were around traveling, and he would travel to different parts of the world, try different foods, that sort of thing.
And you probably think they're happy. You probably think they're doing well.
Because I think apart from denial, the other thing is you put on a good show for others, right? You know, I would think either with Kate Spade or with Anthony Bourdain, whoever met with them the night before thought nothing else. They thought, oh, they're
looking good, and money.
Exactly. And the thing is, there's just so much more to mental health than there is to considering if someone's crazy or not. So I would sense in this, like for people back home in Nigeria, or for these well-known entertainers that we spoke of earlier, you would have to look at their own personal lives, I think, to see what kind of support system they have. Because, again, you can isolate yourself from your family, who probably know you better than anyone else. Yeah. You can isolate yourself from your friends. You can isolate yourself from the people that you work with or interact with, and I would imagine people like those celebrities probably had many dinners and receptions parties that they went to. But if they feel that it's they're not getting support from their support network or support system, that I think further instills in them a sense of loneliness, and it's like, it's my burden, it's mine to deal with, I can't turn to family, I can't turn to friends. And who knows, they probably had maybe no support from other avenues. For example, depending on what faith or religion you have, some are more accepting of depression than others, which again can be a huge setback. If you are part of a member of a religion that again doesn't look kindly upon mental health, you're not going to get much support from your church members. But there are certainly within the Christian community, in fact I often say this to my patients who come in with depression. I said, well, how's your support system? Do you have a good support system from your significant other, your family, your friends? And if they say, well, yeah, that's good. I mean, but if they say they're not really, I say, well, what church do you belong to? Does your church have a support group you can turn to? So I think when people start running out of options, and the other thing, of course, is then they come and see myself as a physician, and I'm not the sort of physician that automatically reaches for my prescription pad, but you go through all those things, right? You go through, well, what's your support system like? Are you getting any support from that system? Have you considered alternative sources of support? Like if it's someone who's struggling with alcohol, have you tried attending Alcoholics Anonymous? You may meet some other people there who instantly become your support system. And then there's counseling. There's counseling at all levels. I mean, there's counseling from a counselor, there's counseling from a psychologist, someone who's actually trained in psychology, mental health issues. And I think what happens is if someone has gone through all these stages and have exhausted all those avenues, including any prescriptions I could prescribe to help with depression or anything like that, in some people's minds they're going, well, what's the point? Nobody can help me. I'm all out of options. I've got nothing to live for. And I think that's what leads to suicidal thoughts and ideation, and then even that has steps. You have the thoughts, and then some people make the plans and leave it at that. They don't work on their plans. Other people work on their plans. Like for example, they might go doctor shopping and get a prescription of this from one doctor, or a prescription of that from another. They stockpile medications, and then once everyone's gone home for the night, in the loneliness of their own room, who's going to stop them from emptying those vials? Call it a day. Unfortunately, suicide,
We still have a lot in stock. We still need to talk about our kids. We still need to talk about ourselves. When do we need help? When do I need help? You don't want to miss this. Sit back, relax, and I will be right back. Hello, beautiful people. I welcome you back to the IBIS show. How are you doing, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm doing very well,
welcome
thank you.
Bringing you back from the break. So, does mental health has to do with age? Like maybe a little, like children. Do we have mental health issues in children? Does it have to do with age?
So, that's a very good question. And I think in general the answer would be no, because certain ages, as we age from children to adults to elderly, each set of age group has their own mental health issues to deal with in general. I think the most common thing I would see as a family physician with children has to do with attention deficit, for example. Attention deficit is certainly a mental health concern. When you look at the physical body, we have so many specialists out there, right? We have specialists that look at our heart, specialists that look at our lungs, kidneys, or you name any organ, there's a specialist out there. But for mental health issues, it usually falls under just one category, and that's psychiatry. And again, that stigma is still there, although I do sense it is improving. But no, for children, for example, attention deficit, I would say, is probably one of the more common mental health issues I see with children. Certainly depression can show up at an early age. And you might think, why in a child would depression show up in an early age? I think in that situation, a lot of it has to do with family dynamics. Parents that are broken up, parents that are separated, parents that are divorced, parents, and then children, you know, shuffling between one home 1 week, one home another.
It affects them.
It's a loss. It's a loss, and what you're losing is stability, a sense of stability. You know, for those children who, you know, can't really call one place their home. They have, say, 2 homes or 3 homes if there's step parents involved. So, and that can certainly be a common cause for depression in children. Because when you think about it, when you displace a child from one house to another, it's like, well, they have to make friends. They have to make friends at one set of house, another friend at another house, and it's really hard to balance, I think, that. Plus, they're growing up and they're looking at parents as role models. And I think when you start coming from a fractured family, it's the role models aren't as strong as they could be. And I think it's important for every child to have not just a maternal role model, but a strong paternal role. And I think in our society, that's where some of the failure is, because quite often you will see families where either the mother is the predominantly parental role, or others where it's the father, and so you're not getting quite the balance of input from female and male role models.
So what are the little things that we could notice in our kids, and we start thinking that they might need to see a psychiatrist, maybe they have mental health issues? What are those little things that we could notice in our kids? Is it the same thing with the adults?
Well, the same things, but you know, given the development of which children are, and that it's the early stages of their life. If we focus, for example, on attention deficit, I think a lot of parents pick up on that quite early, especially once the child has learned to talk and interact with their parents in such a way that they should be able to follow at least some basic instructions. You know, like, could you please get me that, or would you please close the door? But quite often with children with attention deficit, if it's before school, it's usually children that a parent will say to me as a physician, I just can't control him or her. They just won't listen. They won't do anything. You know, I'll tell them one thing and they're off doing 100 other things. As they get older, of course, they enter into the school system, and then that's where you have others noticing problems with attention. And the most obvious group of people in that category would be teachers. You know, not paying attention in class, or disrupting class, or
not listening to basic instruction.
Not getting basic concepts down, not learning their
and
alphabet.
Sometimes they go physical, right? Like they are ready to hit at any slightest thing, throw things around, tantrums.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think those are some of the things for children as far as ADD. The other thing for depression is similar to adults in the sense that children will tend to become withdrawn again, maybe spend more time in their room, not interact with their friends as much as they used to, that sort of thing. The other common mental health issue with children is autism. And that's a difficult one, because that is what we call a spectrum disease, as a lot of other diseases are actually, but you can have severe autism where the child will not even communicate with anyone, not even their parent or sibling. They will not even communicate, period. They will not talk. So you can have severely disabled children with autism right through to highly functioning people with autism. And these are people typically that have a condition called Asperger's syndrome. these people are highly functioning, they're usually very intelligent, they're very good at one thing, for example, very good at solving complex math problems, that sort of thing. But socially, they are delayed. Yeah, they do not interact, or they have difficulty interacting with other people. I don't know how many of your audience watched The Big Bang Theory, but Sheldon Cooper is one of the main characters in that show, and I think, even though they haven't formally said it, I think they portray him as a highly functioning autistic person with basically Asperger's syndrome is what it is. So, and then with depression, again, isolation, withdrawing from activities, crying.
Yeah, crying non-stop. You try everything you could, and they won't just stop.
Exactly.
Sad.
So, so there are some conditions which are more common in a certain age group, but depression in general is not age specific, because in adults, young to middle-aged, that's mostly the bread and butter type of depression we deal with in our family practice.
Yeah.
And that's where it often comes as disguised, and as we mentioned earlier, denial or just some kind of other barrier stopping them from expressing themselves.
So all of those little things, where we notice it from our kids, then there is time to see a doctor. There's time to see a counselor.
Of course.
There is time to talk to someone.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about substance abuse disorder, alcohol and other substance. If someone is pregnant and is into all of these things, abusing alcohol, smoking, doing also those, can that affect the baby?
Yes. All those things you referred to are more common in people with what we have an addictive personality. There is such a thing as an addictive personality. These are the people that find it extremely hard to quit smoking, extremely hard to quit drinking, extremely hard to stop from using substances of abuse, because despite all the times they've seen a doctor, all the times they've seen a counselor, gone to support groups, that sort of thing. Thankfully, some people do succeed, but when you have an addictive personality, that's very, very difficult to treat, because addiction is a craving, and when you have that craving, sometimes all the resources in the world will not overcome it for some people. But yes, for example, a mother who's an alcoholic and becomes pregnant, yes, it can affect the baby. It's called fetal alcohol syndrome, and in fact that's a spectrum disorder too. Some children may be affected not so badly, so mild. Others can be affected quite disabling so, and that comes along with its own issues like learning disabilities or failure to think in complex ways, that sort of thing. And if it's a serious enough condition of fetal alcohol syndrome, unfortunately the child will display physical features that will trigger in your mind that this is what's going on. With other substance abuse, like say crack cocaine, which we all hear about, that too can affect the offspring, and actually it can affect the offspring right from birth, because all of a sudden that child is separate from the mother and will go into withdrawal symptoms if you're not aware of that mother's use of substances. So yes, it can certainly affect the child.
You want to enjoy your motherhood, you want to enjoy your kids when they grow up, you want to be proud of them, then don't do drugs while you're pregnant. Don't do alcohol when you're pregnant. You have to respect that child and respect their future. So let's talk about when do we need help? Do we need help irrespective of the religion that you are practicing? Do we just take everything to be it's religion? And you don't have to seek help from go to a counselor, go to a psychiatrist. When, irrespective of your religion, do you need help?
Yes, I do. I certainly do believe you need help, irrespective of religion, because at the end of the day, the one thing we all have in common is our humanness, our humanity. We're all individuals, we all have our individual cultural backgrounds, individual upbringings, individual influences from, again, family, friends, the sort of people we hang out with, the sort of groups we work with, the people we work with in general, that sort of thing. But I think on that question, there's a little bit of an issue with the religion part of it, and that is you can't paint everyone, of course, with the same religious brush. As I mentioned earlier, there are some people that whose religion is more prohibitive and maybe less accepting of mental health issues. And if you are devout to that particular religion, you are probably also devout to the not so positive things about that religion, which would be, well, I know I'm depressed, I should seek help, but my religion sees that as a sign of weakness. Or if it's a patriarchal religion, meaning that it's very male-driven, my husband will see that as a sign of weakness, for example. And unfortunately, we still live in a world where quite a few religions are patriarchal in nature. In other words, the women don't have a whole lot of say, which is unfortunate here in this 21st century of ours, that we're still having to deal with that. But and of course, let's keep in mind there are people that don't have any religion at all but still have mental health issues.
Mental health issues.
What do those people do? And so I think religion can be a positive thing if the religion that you practice is supportive of mental health, because typically then they have resources that you can make use of within the church. Whatever church that might be, whether it be Roman Catholic or Protestant. Usually more of the religions we think of as Western religions. There may be other religions, though, even in Western society, where to seek anything like that is seen as a sign of weakness, and it's a failure on your part. Which
that's a stigma.
It's a stigma, and that's a very, very hard thing to overcome when the very people around you think that no, there's something wrong with you need to fix it, and to demonstrate these signs of depression or whatever, that's a sign of weakness, which we will not help you with. But in my mind, there's a huge difference between religion and spirituality. Now, in spirituality, anyone can benefit from spiritual either guidance or spiritual ways of healing themselves. Again, some people who are in very restrictive religions may not have those freedoms, but there's the old saying, and I can't remember if I told you this earlier, but it's quite popular, but it's basically where somebody says, I would rather be sitting in a canoe thinking of God than sitting in a church thinking of going canoeing.
Okay. I'm trying to connect to that.
Well, the connection is when you're sitting in a church, you're thinking, even though you're in the house of God, but you're thinking of, oh, I'd rather be in my canoe. I think some people would find that more healing to them, doing something they enjoy doing, rather than, say, going to church, where perhaps they don't feel they get the support they need, they don't get the spiritual or religious guidance that they need. But for some people, just as to have a healthy physical body, it's important to exercise and eat healthy. To have to have a healthy spiritual body, it's important to exercise that part of your and for some people that is going to the mountains or going for a walk or just doing things they fully enjoy, and I think they feel that is more empowering to them and more helpful in the long run than necessarily having to rely on a religion that they belong to but may or may not support them.
So it's very, I think, I am a Christian, I'm a believer, so church to support those people.
Yes.
in general, right? You should be able to provide one or two things to help them mentally, not just coming together, sitting down, and they're not getting help. So
Exactly.
that's what you're saying, basically, right?
What I'm saying is, yes, I think it someone who is truly spiritual, someone who is truly religious, their religion should be supportive of their struggles, whether they be financial or looking for a place to live, or directing them in the right way
That's
to
right.
get the help they need to improve their mental
health.
Yes.
So in summary, what do you have to tell, what do you have to say to my viewer in summary about mental health? Like, what do you have to say to them?
I think in summary, I would say it's more common than we think it is. Well, as you know, I practice as a family physician.
That's right.
And even though a lot of people I see on a day-to-day basis come in for physical ailments, a lot of them have an underlying psychological or mental aspect to it. And unfortunately, we're still not yet at that stage where we treat that part of their health as well as we do their physical health. It's so much easier to write an antibiotic or order a chest X-ray or whatever, but how do you X-ray someone's mental health? You know, so I think that's where it's important to develop good social networks, not just with friends and family, but with your church, your religion. Whatever other group you feel can provide you with that support. And I think that's where we lack in the comparison between treating a physical condition and a mental health condition. The resources are still very much lacking when it comes to treating mental health.
It's been a wonderful time with you. Thank you so much for this power-packed presentation. I really enjoyed it. So what do you do for leisure? What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun?
Yes.
My passion outside of anything else is photography.
Photography, yeah. I know.
And to me, in a way, I see that as a spiritual exercise because
for you,
I do because you know a lot of photography I have been doing not so much this year, but up until now is just to get in the car. My wife is the same; she loves photography.
Oh, beautiful!
It's something we do together.
Each other.
It's something we do together. We just get in the car and we just drive wherever. We know we're not going to get lost. I mean, eventually you'll end up in a major highway somewhere and you'll find your way back to Saskatoon. But I think the coolest thing is to find a side road you've never been down before and come across actually what I like to photograph is nice old churches, you know, with, you know.
I saw some of your work on Facebook. They are really beautiful.
And some of them are still open. Unfortunately, a lot of them remain closed because of vandalism. But the ones that are open, a lot of them are so beautiful inside and inspirational, and even the amount of artwork that goes into decorating the ceiling, the walls. I mean, it's a beautiful experience just to even photograph that sort of thing. And I like photographing elevators, but they keep going down. So there's few of those to photograph, and then other older buildings like barns, farmsteads, that sort of thing. So that's how I escape, so to speak, but not run away, but escape on my own spiritual journey with my camera.
Beautiful, beautiful. We've come to the end of this episode on IBIS Show. It's power-packed, right? It is power-packed. Anyways, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, In Between I Stand. Support your own. We're here motivating you, entertaining you, and bringing the beautiful world together for you to see. Our Facebook, In Between I Stand, and on Instagram is one word, In Between I Stand. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for watching, and bye for now. Bye for now.